For this week's chat with Fisher Funds, we're welcoming back Robyn Conway, GM of Managed Funds, to talk to us about what to do if you have a financial windfall, such as an inheritance, or if you receive money you weren't expecting. Good morning.
Good morning.
How much money actually gets transferred between New Zealanders by this sort of way every year?
Yes, so in the next 25 years, we are expecting to see around just over $1 trillion worth of wealth transfer from one generation to the next. So it is going to be far more topical for a lot of New Zealanders. And receiving an inheritance can be both challenging and overwhelming for people. A lot of the time, it's the first experience with a significant amount of money that people will have received, but it's also very closely tied to the loss and death of a loved one. So making decisions around this time can be both emotional and sometimes even pressured. If we compare that to someone who has perhaps won lotto or received a windfall of money, that might be quite a different experience and approach for them.
A lot of what you're talking about is obviously tied to the emotion of it, right? With lotto, obviously, there's always the hope, and with an inheritance, like you're saying, you're actually dealing with quite a bit on. So once you get that amount of money, what do you actually do with it at the first instance?
Yes, so if the inheritance has come as a surprise, then taking some time to consider how that money might best serve you would be good. Don't do anything too substantial too quickly. A lot of people will treat themselves, which is to be expected, but again, suggesting that people don't go and spend it all at once is a good idea. And also for people, if they are going to be tempted to spend that money in the short term, then perhaps looking at putting it somewhere where it's not quite so accessible, so that you've got time to think about what you want to do with it and ultimately speak with a professional.
That's the bit where, if you haven't talked to a financial advisor before, I imagine this is going to be the situation where people are actually prompted because all of a sudden you're playing in a different game, right? Yes,
that's right. And look, with our ageing population in New Zealand, there's no harm in having a conversation with an advisor prior to receiving funds. What that will do is allow you to have an idea around what you might spend that money on or what you might portion it to. And depending on the circumstances, the amount of money that you might receive, whether there is complexity with a will, might determine what people do with it. Ultimately, a lot of people will spend or use that money to pay down short-term debts such as personal loans or credit cards. For some people, they will look at putting it into an emergency fund. And for many New Zealanders, they will look at paying off their mortgage or putting it towards their own retirement investments and savings. So speaking with an advisor is just going to help guide you through that process and make sure that you are making the most of that money.
Do you think people find it difficult to actually come into a windfall like that and then be faced with the prospect of dealing with it?
Yes, often. And there is a lot of research out there around, people, particularly with winning money, where they haven't had good or responsible financial money habits and end up worse off if they haven't, sought the right advice and got help around that.
Is it one of those things where, because it's still a little bit taboo to talk about money, if it's particularly with a family member, you don't want to be talking to your parent about inheriting their money when they're dead, but if that happens, is it actually something you should maybe approach before that time comes to sort of say, look,
Yes, absolutely. If people are comfortable to do so, then being prepared for when that money comes in is always a good option.
Robyn Conway, GM of Managed Funds for Fisher Funds, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.